Good morning, everyone. It's good to be back. Our Tuesday talk, the HER, Health Empowerment Reset. Before I begin, read the disclaimer that any information we provide today is just for information only. It is not to intend to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease, condition, or illness. So please talk to your primary care doctor if you want to make any changes to your care plan. Good morning. My name is Martha King. I'm an integrated health coach here in Hanover, Pennsylvania.
I'm Dr. DeWart Ray. I'm a gut health specialist here in Hanover, Pennsylvania.
Good. Thank you. We're missing one of the panel's ladies here, but maybe she'll appear in a little bit. But anyway, we'll get started. So today's topic and speaker, it's someone's very special to me. I met her several years ago. She came to one of our conferences. She was an amazing keynote speaker. So I asked her to come back at these. The title for this topic today is about Will Persevere. And I look up the definition of persevere, and there's a lot of labels to it, a lot of definitions to it. And I'm just going to read a few real quick. We talk about being persistent, carry on, go on, keep going, not take no for an answer, go the distance, stay the course, hold on, hang on, stop at nothing. But when I look at these names, Mia is more than that. It's about the inspired within herself that got her through life. And so today she's going to show us the roadmap that she created to be able to bypass all the diverse trials and obstacles that she faced in her life. So I'm going to have her introduce herself, and she'll tell us why she's here, and then, the topic that she selected through her story. Okay, Mia, you have the floor.
Thank you. It's so awesome to be here. So yes, as I was kind of discussing a little bit later about how I have gone through definitely different trials in my life. I think every single person can relate to that. As a human being, we all have gone through really tough times, hard traumas. Sometimes they are more personal and sometimes they're more global, like right now with the COVID and all this, racial issues right now. We are so stressed out. We are so in this dark place where I think sometimes it's hard to see the light just past the dark. And one of the experiences I had in my life really taught me an example of how to get through those dark places when you can't see the light, but knowing there is something that will come after this that will be better. It's kind of like the rainbow after the storm, right? We can all relate to things that we went through in life where we didn't think we'd be able to get through it. Maybe they were things that felt overwhelming. And frankly, sometimes it's really feels in the moment actually easier to just give up. So one of the experiences I had in my life when I was younger really made me start to feel that, wait, things might be really, really bad right now, but there might be something on the other side that works out. When I was 15 years old, I was very athletic, very healthy, really, really active. And literally one day I woke up, I had a stomach ache. The stomach ache got a little bit worse throughout the day. By the end of the day, I had such bad stomach ache that I needed to go to the hospital. They thought I had appendicitis at the time. When I was waiting for them to call me into the room at the hospital, it felt like a knife went into my side. And I knew at that point it was something really, really serious. I had never heard of appendicitis before. But at this point, I knew something was really, really wrong. So I just got up and I said, you have to take me in now. Wasn't until I was lying on the x-ray table that I realized that my legs were heavy. And when I said my legs were heavy to the x-ray technician, she said, that's weird. As soon as she said, that's weird, that scared me because I thought, wait, she thinks that's weird? In combination with a feeling of this extreme stomach pain and now I can't move my legs, like what's going on? They did blood tests, they did x-rays, by the end of that session, they said, we can't find anything wrong with you physically. And we think you might have been nervous about a swim team physical that I had scheduled that same day. And they said, well, we think it might be psychosomatic, and we'll call in a psychiatrist to come talk to you, and that'll be it. And I was really confused at this point, obviously. I'm 15 years old. I'm like, wait, all of a sudden I can't move my legs, and you're telling me it's in my mind, and I'm so anxious that that's the reason that I can't move my legs. And it wasn't until the next day that they actually decided to do an MRI, thinking it might be neurological. Well, when they did that, they did get some answers. When I came out of that MRI, they sat down and told me there is a blood vessel in your spinal cord, similar to an aneurysm, and it ruptured. And you actually had 2 in there. There are 1 in a million chances that you would even have it, even especially in your spinal cord. Usually they're in the brain and they're fatal. But for me, this was, they labeled it an AVM, an arterial venous malformation, which at the time was really hardly unheard of. And when I learned that this is what I had, I immediately was like, why me? Why? This is so rare. Why does this happen to me? The doctor said, you know what? At this point, you're going to be paralyzed. Like any other spinal cord injury, you're going to go and you're going to learn how to live your life in a wheelchair. And you're going to see what you get back within 2 years. So the first 2 years, the spinal cord goes out of shock. And that's why it takes a while to figure out, how much you get back, either feeling wise or movement wise. It's really so different for every single spinal cord injury. That's why you can't say one paraplegic is similar to another, or one quadriplegic is similar to another, because every single injury is different and every single recovery is different. When I got to the rehab hospital, they said, okay, we have 3 months to teach you how to do everything you learned up until your life at this point, and we're going to teach it to you all over again, and you're going to start your life anew. And I didn't want that. I mean, here I am, 15 years old, thinking, wait, how? I can't live my life in a wheelchair. Like, this isn't okay for me. I couldn't even imagine going back to my high school in a wheelchair. So at first it was just this resistance that I had. No matter what it was, no matter what was going on, I just wanted to resist it, deny it, resist it. This isn't happening. What can I do to make this go away? What can I do to walk again? And that became such a big focus of mine that I started to get extreme anxiety to the point where I couldn't sleep for 2 weeks while I was in the hospital. The first 2 weeks I was in this rehab hospital, I couldn't sleep. So you can imagine what my mind was doing. Already it's going through all this stress. And at the same time, I didn't know what to do. I mean, my brain literally shut down and reset. And I think it was for a health reason that it did that. Because after these 2 weeks, I did have kind of a breakthrough, so to speak. And all of a sudden, I was a little bit ready to open up, a little bit more ready to go into the physical therapy room and say, okay, how do I build up my arm strength? Because this is how I'm going to get around now. My arms are going to become my legs, right? So I was going to say, if you can see now that, so I'm in a wheelchair, right? So for me, this wheelchair originally felt like prison because I did not know how to use it. I didn't even know how to get into the wheelchair to get to the physical therapy room. I didn't know how to wheel a wheelchair. So it literally started with baby steps. And today I want to talk about those baby steps that I did take that really helped me get through this time, but it also helped me have a better perspective on everything that's happened since then that's been challenging. The first one I want to talk about is self-expression through trying to express your pain through your own self-expression. One of the things I learned when I was in the hospital was that every single person processes trauma, stress differently. We are all different. Our brains work different. We all have different fingerprints for a reason. We all are unique. One of the things I learned about me being self-expressive about my situation was that it really was healthy. I didn't know it at the time, but one of the things I did do was I expressed how angry I was. I expressed how suicidal I was. I expressed how scared I was, because that's what I was feeling. And there were other people that were trying to hold it all in just to be strong, maybe for a family member, or maybe for themselves, or maybe for, just a protective measure. What I learned was the more you express, the more you release. Mm-hmm. And that release is going to open up something else so that you can shift and move forward a little bit further. So that for me was, I had always taken art classes growing up. And my occupational therapist in the hospital knew this. And she also could tell that I had lost all interest in everything I cared about because I was so depressed. But she said, we got to get your arms moving. We got to get you moving. We got to get you motivated. And so she came in one day, she put weights on my wrists, and she came in one day with an easel and a blank piece of paper and brought me all these markers and paints. And at first, I was like, this is so silly. This is so silly. I don't care about art anymore, I'm paralyzed here. Like, why do I care about things that I used to care about? This is just, my life's completely new. I'm not going to care about anything like that. But as soon as I picked up a marker, I put it in my hand and I started to draw. Now, anyone that's seen my art before knows that I'm very, very precise. I do like photorealistic stuff. So it's very, very precise. This, I just let loose. I was like, and I just took the colors and it just was a mishmash. It looked like a modern art piece, honestly, the sense that it was self-expression because my inside was feeling that way. And that was eye-opening for me because I thought, art isn't just something I like to do. It's the way I express myself. So I started to find these ways of expressing myself that made me feel more me. Because at the end of the day, yes, I'm in a wheelchair. Yes, I'm sitting down more often than I was before, but I'm still me. And that was a really big revelation for me to realize, is that no matter what's happening to me physically, no matter what's going on outside of my control, I'm still me and I can still deal with this the way I want to deal with it. And I'm still going to find myself and hold on to myself so that I can continue on with life and feel whole. The second thing I wanted to talk about was change. One of the things I want to talk about change is because change is not this scary big thing that we all have in our brains about change. Change can feel so overwhelming at times, scary. Another reason why we resist a lot of the times is change is very difficult for human beings. We like routine, some more than others. I actually dislike general routine, but I love the curiosity and the unknown of what's to come when it has to do with change. People ask me, how do you stay positive, during things? And I always say, because I never know what's going to happen. That's cool. That's change. I never know what's going to happen. And it might be tomorrow something awful happens and scares me and makes my whole world shut down again. But I know that I can get through it. And that's the one thing we all have in common, is we all can get through whatever we are given, whether it's outside of ourselves or whether inside of ourselves. But change on the outside is a gift to show us how to change on the inside. And that is such a beautiful gift to think about when you're going through something that's really out of your control, that is just, I don't like this. This doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel like my normal life. This doesn't feel like my normal self. But that is only an example of what's going on for you to say, I'm going to take this and I'm going to internalize it and I'm going to change myself, because I am going to adapt. I am going to learn. I am going to take action now in order to move forward. That's an awesome thing about change, is that we can take it, own it, and make it better. We can take everything that's going on in any given moment and say, hey, after this moment, I am going to take whatever happened and I'm going to persevere. I'm going to take all of this and move forward. And the last thing I wanted to point out through my roadmap of getting through my paralysis was fear in general. I talked a little bit about anxiety and how I had this extreme fear in the very beginning. And this fear still, to this day, is a thing I deal with. And it could be for the littlest reason, and it could be for something that's really, really stressful and something that I do fear about what's going on. But that's always going to be there. And I started to realize, wait, fear is not scary. Fear is just an opportunity. Fear is an opportunity for me to say, oh, wait, this is a chance that I can use some of the courage I have deep down. Not always do I feel it, but I know it's there. So when I am talking about moving forward and letting go of that fear will disable you. That's what I always say now, is because I realize this wheelchair and not walking is not a disability. These are not things that disabled me. The only thing that could have disabled me then, and still to this day could, is that if I gave into fear and said, okay, I'm not going to do that because it's new, it's scary, it's change. I'm just going to stay where I am. And it could be something that is the littlest thing. When I first got out of rehab and I went back to my normal life, I was terrified to go to high school. I was terrified to go out with my friends again. I was terrified to have a slumber party. Partly because I didn't know if I could get into somebody's house in a wheelchair. Well, guess what? I learned to get carried, and all these little steps where I said, okay, if I said no to something because I was afraid, now I'm not talking about real fight or flight fear. I'm talking about this fear that we all know we have that we can override and that it's for our best interest. We have that instinct of knowing the difference between those. When we know that it's just a fear that's keeping us back, then we can say, all right, I'm going to do this anyways for that reason. And every single time I said, oh, wait, I'm afraid because of the wheelchair, I did it anyways. And that's how I started to realize, wait, I can do all those things that I feared. I can keep going. I can live my life again. I can move on. And these are like the 3 pillars, I think, talk about there are 5 pillars. These are 3 pillars that I really held on to during that time to help me go forward. Once you let go of all those fears and you can move forward and start to realize, wait, I have a purpose. This purpose might not have been something that I planned. This purpose might not have been something that I chose, but it's for you. And sometimes we have to go through these onion layers to find those purposes and to hang on to them and realize I'm still me. I'm still going to fulfill my purpose. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about those 3 topics or any personal experiences that you've had with change, trauma, fears?
Oh gosh, Mia, so well said. Oh gosh, I just love to hear you speak. And these are an amazing, amazing pillars. We talk about change and anything that impacts on the outside, of course, it impacts the inside. But that mind shift, that change of growth instead of that fixed mindset, it all begins from within. So I just want to emphasize that you said that. One question, did you go back to the pool swimming?
A good question. So yes, and that was a process in itself because I loved to swim. And once I got paralyzed, I did go to like pool parties and I would get in the water. But every time I got in the water, I was afraid to swim. And I knew I could swim because in the rehab hospital that I went to, they said, you were a swimmer before, you should get in the water and swim. I mean, there's the Paralympics. You could even be, an elite athlete. And I couldn't get myself to do it. And I didn't know why until years later, 17 years to be exact, did I get back in the pool. And that first time I got back in the pool, I started to say, you know what? I'm just going to try this. I'm just going to try to swim the length of the pool. And once I started and I made it to the other end, I was like, wait a minute. This is what I was fearing? Like this was a roadblock for me. And I think it was because the swimming to me represented an old life that I was afraid to let go of because I thought that I had lost something. When in actuality, I gained something. Because that swimming, that when I went back in the pool and swam one length and the other length, that to me felt more exuberating and I felt more of a winner than any other times I had swum before competitively and maybe had won. This was the time where I had won for myself. I wasn't looking at somebody else during each lane, during the lanes. I wasn't competing with anybody else. I was literally saying, okay, I'm going to fight this fear. I'm going to compete with this fear within me, and I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to see what's on the other side. And the other side was like, I can't even tell you how much it opened up my life in other ways, because it was really a last hurdle for me of getting over that trauma from that past. Because of course, like we're always going to remember what happens. And those moments can become still difficult, even 20, 30 years down the road. And it can come out unexpectedly. But for me, those moments where it's like, okay, this is a process for life. There's always going to be something to get over. There's always going to be challenges. And looking back, you can go back and rectify some of those. And that was one of the things I needed to do to still feel like myself and to make sure that getting paralyzed literally did not stop me.
You said about the roadmap. This is more like the blueprint for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
To this other phase in life. Yeah.
Yes.
Julie, you have anything?
Yeah, I actually had a couple things. I wrote down, you talked a lot about resistance and how you were trying to overcome that. I listen to a lot of self-help podcasts and audiobooks and things like that, because I'm always trying to improve myself as well. And one thing that I think stands out in your story was how you had to change your mindset. And that's a theme that I hear consistently with self-help people. And, they say that part of our hurdle is not doing the thing. It's believing we can do the thing. And it's different for everybody. And just being able to sit back and say, realistically, what am I afraid of? Is that a realistic fear? And how can I now overcome it and go with it? And one of my mantras that I say to myself every time I feel like, oh, that's too scary, I'm not going to do that. I always say, doing it scared, but doing it anyway. And that's such an important mindset shift for me in that moment, because I'm acknowledging this is outside of my comfort zone, but I don't care, I'm doing it anyway. So I love your story. And I think that really brings home for me, that our limiting beliefs are just that. And getting in the right mindset and doing it anyway is what helps us be successful in whatever it is. It could be the smallest little thing: lose weight, be more active, start a business, like whatever it is, just doing it and not worrying about the fear and overcoming that. So great story. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, no, that was one of the lessons I actually learned by watching my parents during my paralysis, is because my mom was so focused on me walking again. And my dad was like, I don't care if she walks as long as she's happy. And when I started to think about those and say, wait, there is one that might not be in my control. The other one is. And how do I shift my mind so that I'm okay no matter what? And that was something that I learned from them. That exact point was, there are things that we can change because of our mindset. And if we change our mindset, everything else will fall into place. Making sure that we do persevere no matter what, and we keep going, even when we don't feel like it. And I think that's a big part of it too, right? There are so many times where I just don't feel like it. and frankly, I might do that, and I did do that when I first got paralyzed. I'm like, I don't feel like going to physical therapy. I don't feel like learning how to dress again. Like, sorry. Like, and, but if I had stayed in that place, I wouldn't even be where I am now, which is I've done everything that I ever wanted to accomplish regardless. And those were my purposes. So if I had stayed in that fear, I would not have been able to stay on the road for my life and those purposes. Yeah.
Good.
Beautiful, beautiful. It's good to see you again, Mia. And we're gonna announce to the public out there that you're gonna come back. You know, we're gonna do.
There's so many things we could talk about.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, our time is running now. We want to bring up about, we have a few more in August that we're going to be doing at Tuesday Talks. And we're going to take some time off, just a couple weeks, just to prepare for our online summit that's coming up September 14th through the 17th. And each day, we're going to have a 2-hour session in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, and bring in 16 speakers to come and talk about a balanced approach to pain and well-being, and all talking about the physical pain, emotional pain, and spiritual pain. So we're real excited about this. Some of the speakers that have been already presented after her conversation talks, these talks, are coming back, and we get some new ones on board. And Mia's going to be one of them. So we're real excited to see her again. And so we want to thank you, Mia, for your time. You know,
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Beautiful, and you have a beautiful heart. And so, all right, our time is running out, so we will post this on Facebook, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Yes, stay in 1 second. What happened to my button? Sorry about that.